Most chicken owners never realize how much money quietly disappears into feed costs every single month. One bag becomes two, two bags become four, and before long, raising a small backyard flock starts feeling less like freedom and more like a never-ending subscription bill. For many families, chicken feed has become the single most expensive part of keeping birds alive. Prices continue rising, bags get smaller, quality changes, and every trip to the feed store feels heavier than the last. But hidden behind all of that frustration is a question more farmers are finally starting to ask. What if chickens were never meant to depend entirely on commercial pellets in the first place? Because long before massive feed companies existed, long before industrial poultry farming took over the world, chickens survived in a completely different way. They scratched through forests. They hunted insects. They ate leaves, seeds, weeds, aquatic plants, and nutrient-dense greens growing naturally around them. In many parts of the world, farmers raise healthy flocks without depending on expensive manufactured feed systems at all. And now, as feed costs continue climbing higher every year, more people are beginning to rediscover those forgotten methods again. What makes this even more shocking is that some of the most powerful chicken feed plants grow incredibly fast. Some grow like weeds. Some regrow after cutting. Some thrive in harsh heat. And one of them multiplies so quickly that farmers struggle to harvest it fast enough before it takes over entire ponds. Yet most chicken owners have never even heard of them. Instead, they've been taught that feeding chickens must always mean spending money every month forever. That dependency has become normal. But for smart farmers, homesteaders, and backyard growers, a different system is quietly emerging. A system built around self-sufficiency, resilience, and feed independence. And the people learning these methods now may have a massive advantage in years ahead. Because the reality is simple. The more expensive commercial feed becomes, the more valuable natural feed systems become. Especially when some of these plants can dramatically reduce costs while also improving flock health at the same time. But before looking at the plants themselves, it's important to understand why so many chicken owners are struggling in the first place. The modern poultry system was designed for speed and efficiency. Large commercial farms needed predictable feeding systems capable of raising massive numbers of birds as quickly as possible. Pellets became the perfect solution. Uniform nutrition, easy storage, fast growth, simple distribution. But that same system also created dependency. Instead of chickens feeding from diverse natural ecosystems, they became increasingly tied to processed feed formulas. And over time, many backyard farmers began believing there was no other option. Now, commercial feed absolutely has its place. Balanced nutrition matters. Protein matters. Minerals matter. Healthy birds still require proper care and proper feeding balance. But the problem begins when farmers rely completely on purchased feed, while ignoring the enormous amount of nutrition nature can already provide almost for free. That's where the biggest opportunity exists. Because chickens are not delicate animals. They are natural foragers. They are survivors. Give them access to fresh greens, insects, seeds, and diverse plants, and their instincts immediately activate. Anyone who has ever released chickens into a backyard knows exactly what happens. They don't sprint toward pellets first. They scratch through grass. They chase bugs. They rip apart leaves. They search constantly for living food. It's built into them. And that natural behavior is exactly what smart farmers are beginning to use again, especially with one remarkable plant that may be one of the fastest growing protein sources on Earth. Duckweed. At first glance, duckweed barely looks important. Floating across the surface of ponds like tiny green specks. Most people ignore it completely. Some even consider it a nuisance. But hidden inside this simple aquatic plant is something extraordinary. Under the right conditions, duckweed grows at explosive speed. Some varieties can double in size within days. Days, not months, not seasons. Days. That kind of growth changes everything for farmers trying to lower feed costs. Because duckweed is not just fast-growing. It's also packed with nutrients and surprisingly high in protein. In some systems, farmers harvest buckets of it continuously while barely spending anything to maintain production. The plant thrives in warm water, absorbs nutrients efficiently, and reproduces rapidly with minimal effort once established properly. For chickens, it becomes an incredibly attractive fresh feed source. The moment many birds see it, they attack it aggressively. And unlike expensive processed feed that disappears the second it's poured into a feeder, duckweed can keep regenerating again and again under the right setup. That's the power of renewable feed systems. Instead of constantly buying nutrition, farmers begin growing nutrition. And duckweed is only the beginning, because another forgotten plant has been quietly used in traditional farming systems for generations. Azolla, sometimes called green gold by farmers who understand its potential. Azolla is another aquatic plant capable of astonishing growth. But what makes azolla especially interesting is its relationship with nitrogen-fixing bacteria. This allows it to naturally capture and use nutrients efficiently while spreading rapidly across water surfaces. For small farmers, that matters enormously, because fast growth means repeat harvests. Repeat harvests mean recurring feed, and recurring feed means less dependence on expensive commercial systems. In many parts of Asia and Africa, azolla has been used alongside livestock systems for years. Chickens eat it, ducks eat it, fish systems benefit from it, and because it grows directly on water, it can produce large amounts of biomass in surprisingly small spaces. That efficiency is exactly why more homesteaders are paying attention to it now, especially as people search for sustainable ways to feed animals during uncertain economic conditions. But while aquatic plants offer incredible opportunities, one tree may be even more impressive. Moringa. Some farmers call it the miracle tree. Others call it the survival tree. And once you understand how powerful this plant truly is, it becomes easy to see why. Moringa grows aggressively in warm climates. Its leaves are loaded with nutrients. It tolerates heat extremely well. It regrows after cutting. And chickens absolutely love it. The leaves contain valuable vitamins, minerals, and protein that make them incredibly attractive inside natural feeding systems. Farmers often harvest branches repeatedly, while the tree continues producing fresh growth again and again. That kind of resilience is priceless, especially in regions where harsh weather, rising costs, or poor soil conditions make traditional farming difficult. And unlike commercial feed that vanishes the moment supply chains fail or prices spike, Moringa keeps growing quietly in the background, producing nutrition directly from sunlight, water, and soil. That's what makes these systems so powerful psychologically. They create independence. Not total independence overnight, not magic solutions, but real reductions in dependency that can significantly lower long-term costs for smart farmers willing to build sustainable systems slowly over time. And the deeper you go into this world, the more surprising the possibilities become. Because some farmers are now combining aquatic plants, perennial trees, backyard weeds, insects, and rotational systems together into highly productive feeding ecosystems capable of supporting chickens far more naturally than most people ever imagined possible. But surprisingly, many chicken owners still make one massive mistake when trying to build these systems. They focus only on replacing feed instead of understanding nutrition balance itself. And that mistake can completely destroy flock health if done incorrectly. Because while natural feeding systems can become incredibly powerful, chickens still require proper protein, minerals, energy, and dietary diversity to remain healthy and productive. Which means the next step is understanding not just what chickens can eat, but which plants actually help improve egg production, bird health, and long-term flock performance at the same time. One of the biggest mistakes new chicken owners make is assuming that any green plant automatically creates a healthy feeding system. The internet is filled with people tossing random leaves into chicken runs and hoping for the best. But smart farmers understand something far more important. Diversity matters. A chicken surviving is not the same thing as a chicken thriving. Healthy egg production, strong feathers, good energy levels, rich yolk color, and long-term flock health all depend on proper nutritional balance. That's why experienced farmers focus on combining multiple natural feed sources together instead of relying entirely on a single miracle plant. And once people begin understanding that principle, everything changes. Because suddenly, the goal is no longer just reducing feed costs. The goal becomes creating a complete ecosystem that continuously supports healthier birds in a more sustainable way. That's where some of the most powerful backyard feed plants begin to stand out, especially the plants connected to egg production itself. Comfrey is one of them. At first glance, Comfrey does not look particularly impressive. Its leaves are large, rough, and simple looking. But beneath that ordinary appearance is one of the most useful perennial plants many homesteaders ever grow. Comfrey grows aggressively once established. Its roots run deep into the soil, pulling up nutrients from below the surface that many shallow-rooted plants never reach. Those nutrients accumulate inside the leaves, creating a dense source of natural minerals and organic matter. For chickens, those leaves become highly valuable additions to diversified feeding systems. But what truly makes Comfrey powerful is how quickly it regenerates after cutting. Some farmers harvest it multiple times during a growing season, while the plant continues returning stronger each time. That constant regrowth transforms it from a one-time crop into a recurring source of biomass. And recurring biomass is exactly what self-sufficient farmers want. Because every repeated harvest means more available feed, more compost material, and less dependency on outside inputs. That same principle applies to another surprising plant many people overlook completely: sunflowers. Most people think of sunflowers as decorative plants, giant yellow flowers standing beautifully in fields during summer. But experienced chicken keepers see something entirely different. They see calories. They see seeds. They see natural nutrition growing directly from sunlight. Sunflower heads can produce massive amounts of nutrient-rich seeds that chickens absolutely love. Those seeds contain fats, energy, and valuable nutrients capable of supporting birds naturally when used correctly as part of a balanced feeding approach. But sunflowers also provide something beyond nutrition. They create vertical farming space. Tall stalks provide shade. Birds forage beneath them. Insects gather around them. Fallen seeds create natural feeding opportunities. Even the structure of the garden itself becomes more biologically active once systems like this begin layering together. That's when a backyard starts transforming into something much bigger than a simple chicken run. It becomes a living food system. And perhaps one of the most underrated plants in that system is amaranth. For centuries, amaranth has been cultivated in different parts of the world for both human and animal use. The plant grows quickly, produces large seed heads, and thrives under difficult conditions where other crops struggle. But what makes it especially attractive for chicken systems is its dual-purpose nature. The leaves can be useful. The seeds can be useful. The plant grows densely, and chickens happily forage through fallen material once mature. For small farmers trying to maximize production from limited land, plants like this become extremely valuable. Because every square foot begins serving multiple purposes simultaneously: food production, shade, insect attraction, biomass generation, natural feeding, soil improvement. This is how highly efficient homestead systems quietly evolve over time, not through one magical solution, but through stacking functions together intelligently. And then there are sweet potato leaves. This surprises many people because most think only about the potatoes themselves. But the vines and leaves can also become excellent additions to diversified feeding systems when managed correctly. Sweet potatoes spread aggressively across soil surfaces, helping suppress weeds while generating large amounts of green material. Chickens enjoy foraging through the vines, and the plant itself produces two separate benefits at once: both edible tubers and abundant vegetation. That level of efficiency matters enormously for self-sufficient farming, because the most powerful systems are not built around single outputs. They are built around layers of productivity happening simultaneously across the same space. And once multiple productive plants begin working together, something fascinating starts happening inside the flock itself. The birds become more active, more engaged, more natural. Anyone who watches chickens around fresh living plants immediately notices the difference. Their instincts activate. They scratch more aggressively. They forage constantly. They move with energy and curiosity instead of simply standing beside feeders waiting for pellets to appear. That behavioral difference matters more than many people realize, because natural foraging activity stimulates both physical and mental engagement in ways industrial feeding systems simply cannot replicate. And the visual results often become obvious too. Richer yolk colors, healthier looking feathers, more active birds, more diverse diets. Now, none of this means commercial feed suddenly becomes useless. Balanced nutrition still matters tremendously. Serious deficiencies can still occur if feeding systems are poorly managed. But integrating powerful natural plants into chicken systems can dramatically improve resilience while reducing costs over time. And resilience is becoming one of the most important concepts in modern farming, because more people are beginning to recognize how fragile, highly dependent systems truly are. One supply chain disruption, one economic crisis, one major feed shortage, one transportation issue, and suddenly, farmers completely dependent on purchased feed face enormous pressure overnight. That reality is exactly why interest in self-sustaining feed systems has exploded across homesteading communities in recent years. People want security. They want backup systems. They want renewable food production. And most importantly, they want control. That desire for independence is pushing many backyard farmers toward a completely different philosophy of raising chickens altogether. Instead of asking, how much feed should I buy? They're asking, how much feed can I grow? That mindset shift changes everything. Because once farmers begin viewing their land as a living feed source instead of just empty space, entirely new possibilities emerge. Trees become feed. Ponds become feed. Weeds become feed. Insects become feed. Garden waste becomes feed. Fallen fruit becomes feed. Even neglected corners of land suddenly become productive again. And perhaps the most powerful part of all this is that many of these systems improve over time instead of declining. Perennial plants mature, soil improves, water systems stabilize, biodiversity increases. The entire environment slowly becomes more productive year after year. That's the opposite of dependency. That's regeneration. And some homesteaders are now taking this idea even further by designing complete survival feed gardens specifically intended to support chickens during difficult times. Gardens filled with perennial crops, fast-growing greens, self-reseeding plants, aquatic protein systems, natural insect habitats, dense layered vegetation. The goal is not perfection. The goal is resilience. Because resilient systems survive problems better than fragile systems do. And in an uncertain world, resilience becomes incredibly valuable, especially for people serious about long-term food security. But despite all these benefits, there's still one major mistake that continues ruining natural feeding systems for beginners everywhere. Many people become so excited about reducing feed costs that they rush into extreme approaches without understanding balance first. And that mistake can create serious problems inside a flock surprisingly fast. One of the fastest ways to destroy a healthy flock is chasing shortcuts instead of building balance. This is where many beginners go wrong. They discover one viral video about natural chicken feeding, get excited about cutting costs, and suddenly attempt to replace almost everything with a single plant or homemade mix overnight. But chickens are not machines. Their nutritional needs are constantly changing depending on age, climate, egg production, stress levels, and overall health. That means smart farmers think long-term. They understand that natural feeding systems work best when they support balanced nutrition instead of replacing it recklessly. Because the truth is, there is no single magic plant capable of solving every feeding problem perfectly on its own. Duckweed is powerful. Moringa is impressive. Azolla grows incredibly fast. Comfrey regenerates aggressively. But real success comes from combining systems intelligently instead of depending blindly on one solution. That's why experienced homesteaders focus on diversity first. Different plants provide different nutrients. Different seasons affect growth differently. Different climates favor different systems. And the strongest setups usually include multiple feed sources working together at the same time. For example, one farmer may combine duckweed ponds with moringa trees and rotating sunflower beds. Another may focus on perennial greens alongside compost systems that attract insects naturally. Someone else may use layered food forests where chickens forage beneath productive trees, while harvesting fall material directly from the ground. There is no single perfect formula, only smarter systems. And that's important because many online discussions oversimplify natural feeding into unrealistic promises. Some people claim chickens can live entirely free forever with no planning at all. Others assume a few backyard weeds automatically replace balanced nutrition. But responsible farmers understand that healthy birds still require proper care, observation, and nutritional support. Natural feeding is not about neglect. It's about reducing dependency intelligently. That distinction matters enormously, because when done correctly, these systems can become incredibly powerful over time. Imagine stepping into your backyard and seeing food production happening everywhere at once. Moringa leaves swaying in the wind, sunflowers towering overhead, chickens scratching beneath fruit trees, duckweed multiplying across ponds, comfrey regenerating after harvest, insects gathering naturally throughout the environment. Instead of buying every ounce of nutrition from outside sources, the land itself begins participating in the feeding process. That changes the psychology of farming completely. Suddenly, every plant becomes valuable. Every corner of land becomes productive. Every harvest creates another layer of resilience. And perhaps the most powerful part is how scalable these systems can become. A beginner might start with one moringa tree, then add a small duckweed container, then experiment with sunflowers, then introduce perennial greens. Little by little, dependency decreases while confidence grows. That gradual progression is exactly how sustainable homesteads are built, not through perfection overnight, but through steady systems that improve year after year. And the deeper people go into this world, the more they begin realizing something surprising. Nature already knows how to produce enormous amounts of animal nutrition naturally. Industrial systems simply taught modern farmers to ignore it. For thousands of years, chickens survived through diversity, movement, foraging insects, seeds, leaves, scraps, aquatic plants, and seasonal abundance. They were part of ecosystems, not isolated feed-consuming machines standing beside metal feeders all day. Modern farming increased efficiency dramatically, but in many cases it also disconnected people from natural regenerative systems that once existed everywhere. Now, more farmers are trying to reconnect those systems again, especially younger homesteaders searching for affordable ways to survive rising costs. And perhaps no plant symbolizes that movement better than moringa, because if there is one plant almost every beginner can start with, it may be this one. Moringa grows aggressively in warm climates. It handles heat well. It recovers quickly after cutting. The leaves are nutrient-dense. Chickens enjoy eating it. And once established properly, the tree can continue producing repeatedly over long periods. That combination makes it extremely attractive for backyard systems. But even more importantly, moringa represents something bigger than itself. It represents independence. A tree quietly producing nutrition in the background, while feed prices continue rising around the world. A renewable source of green material growing directly from sunlight, rain, and soil. A living system instead of a disposable product. And that idea is becoming more powerful every year, because people everywhere are beginning to recognize that resilience matters. Self-sufficiency matters. Food security matters. The ability to grow even part of your own feed matters, especially during uncertain times. And while no system eliminates every challenge completely, farmers who build regenerative ecosystems often gain advantages that purely dependent systems simply do not have. More flexibility, more adaptability, more local production, more long-term sustainability. That's why these methods continue spreading rapidly through homesteading communities across the world. Not because they are trendy, but because they solve real problems. The future may belong to farmers who learn how to combine modern knowledge with regenerative natural systems instead of depending entirely on one approach alone. People who understand soil, water, plants, cycles, ecosystems, and renewable food production. Because at the end of the day, the smartest farmers are not just raising chickens. They are building systems capable of feeding those chickens sustainably for years into the future. And that changes everything. The moment you stop seeing your backyard as empty space and start seeing it as a living feed factory, your entire approach to farming begins shifting. The weeds become useful. The pond become productive. The trees become valuable. The land starts working with you instead of against you. That is the real secret behind self-sustaining chicken systems. Not one miracle crop, not one viral trick, but a mindset built around renewable abundance. And the farmers learning these methods now may become far more prepared for the future than most people realize. Because while others panic over rising feed costs, resilient farmers quietly keep growing, quietly harvesting, quietly adapting, quietly building systems that become stronger with time instead of weaker. And honestly, this is only the beginning. There are still powerful protein systems most chicken owners have never seen. There are insects capable of replacing massive amounts of feed. There are forgotten homestead techniques that can dramatically increase food production from tiny spaces. There are ancient farming methods being rediscovered right now that could completely change how small farmers raise livestock in the future. And that is exactly what this channel is about. Herd and Harvest is not just about raising animals. It is about building smarter systems, cheaper systems, more resilient systems. Systems that help ordinary people become less dependent and more self-sufficient in a world becoming more expensive every year. So if you want to learn more about natural feeding systems, survival farming, backyard livestock secrets, regenerative homesteading, and forgotten methods smart farmers are bringing back to life, then make sure you subscribe to Herd and Harvest right now, because the next videos are going even deeper. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next.